The Fantastic Four saved Marvel, and they brought in a new age of comic books, the Marvel Age. So let's talk about it. With Marvel Comics struggling to keep up with their competition, their comics were plagued with low sales and not a lot of morale. Even Stan Lee, the editor-in-chief, was frustrated and disappointed in the books they were producing and writing all these monster books and just, romance and everything and trying to keep up with the trends. It felt like they were going in no direction. He actually thought about quitting his job at one point and going into radio, writing for radio that is, but his wife convinced him not to. This all changed when his boss, Martin Goodman, went out golfing with the head of DC Publishers, their main competitor. And what the head of DC said to Martin was, man, we're having these awesome, crazy sales. We're selling out, we're just doing amazing with this little title called Justice League. And that's a superhero title, if you didn't know. So Martin, who is always following the trends, came back to Stan and said, Stan, we need a superhero team ASAP. And Stan said to Jack Kirby, Jack, we need a superhero team ASAP. And they created the Fantastic Four, bringing in the Marvel Age of Comics and changing comic books forever. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about this first omnibus and a little bit about Silver Age Fantastic Four. This is part 1 of 3. As you guys know, I'm a huge Fantastic Four fan, but I've never actually read these all together, one by one all together, in a run. So I'm actually going to be reading issues 1 through 102, which is Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's collaboration. It goes from 1 to 102. And I'm going to be kind of just talking about it, talking about my favorite stories, talking about the art, talking about the characters. So stay tuned for the ride. Alright, so I want to talk a little bit about the origin of the Fantastic Four. And we see this in issue number 1, which is obviously their first appearance. And this is where we first meet Ben Grimm, who becomes the Thing, Reed Richards, who becomes Mr. Fantastic, Sue Storm, who becomes the Invisible Woman, and Johnny Storm, who becomes the Human Torch. And the way they got this was they were going into space because Reed's a crazy scientist, and they're going into space to try and beat the Russians to get to space first. And in this time period, it was the early 60s, there's a lot of Cold War era stuff. There's a lot of stuff about the Russians, a lot of stuff about communism. There's a lot of that type of thing in these stories. But anyway, they get some cosmic rays, and they get hit by cosmic rays while going into space. And they all get their superpowers, and they transform. And Ben Grimm transformed into the Thing, and he's all upset about it. But that's just kind of going into their origin a little bit. Now let's actually talk about the characters and the villains and these particular stories in here. Okay, so first I want to talk a little bit about each individual character. I'll go with the Thing first since I just mentioned him. But what I really like throughout these stories is Ben Grimm is depressed and he's angry because he's a Thing and he's ugly. And we get to Alicia. Then he meets Alicia Masters, his girlfriend, and Alicia likes him being the Thing though. But Ben is doesn't think he's good enough for her. And there's a lot of stuff about that, and it really adds depth to the character. It really makes you feel for the Thing. It makes you feel bad for him, man. And a lot happens in this in these stories is a lot of times Reed is trying to get a formula to let him turn back into Ben Grimm, but it only lasts for a little bit, and you see that a couple times throughout these stories where Reed has a new formula, it didn't last as long as it should have, right? And one thing I noticed actually is the Thing changes, the way he's drawn changes throughout the time, and I'm not sure if it was Jack Kirby changing a little bit, or if it was the inker, depending on the inker, or maybe it's a combination of both, right? So I'll show you kind of a little progression of the Thing here. Let's go into Mr. Fantastic then. And obviously his power is, he can stretch and everything, but I think personally that Reed's greatest power is his mind, because he is one of the greatest scientific geniuses ever. A lot of the time in these stories, the way they get out of trouble, the way Fantastic Four wins the battle is because of Reed being so smart, and he makes up a gizmo and helps him out, you know what I mean? So I think Reed is really awesome just because he's just him and Dr. Doom are 2 of the smartest people ever, and it's awesome to see their battles, of the minds there. a little bit opposite of the Thing, who is just, super strong. But then we get into Sue Storm, who actually was not very useful in the first many issues of the Fantastic Four, and a lot of readers noticed that. And you can see in the letter pages sometimes complaining like, "Hey, make the Invisible Woman more useful. All she does is get captured, and then the three other members go to save her. So it's just kind of like she doesn't even do anything." So I think Stan Lee definitely heard that, and in issue 22 gave her extra powers where she can make force fields and stuff. Like before, she could just go invisible. And it's like, well, I mean, okay, that's cool and all, but she can't really attack people that much, and it's like she just kept getting captured. But in issue 22, she gets to make invisible force fields. She can trap people in them. She can make invisible force field walls and do all this cool stuff. So that really levels up her character there. And then we get to the Human Torch, it's Johnny Storm, and you actually see a lot in these how he is just the teenager. He's like the little kid. He doesn't like being treated like the little kid, but also he's a hothead. Him and Ben Grimm fight a lot. They're always going at it, and you see that in these stories. And that it really, the thing I like about these characters and what the Marvel Age of Comics is all about really is giving real life problems to their characters. We don't really see that. We didn't see that as much with the DC characters back in the day. But then with these characters, we see, Ben or the Thing hates himself because he's so ugly. Mr. Fantastic even, he has troubles getting Sue because Sue is kind of interested in Namor at one point. But all that type of stuff, it's awesome. It really gives the characters depth. Speaking of Namor, let's actually get into some villains. So first up, we meet the Mole Man in issue number 1. Then we get the Skrulls. And then issue 3, we get Miracle Man, who's, it's Miracle Man. But issue 4, we get to see Namor for the first time in the Silver Age. He was actually a character back in the Golden Age, but they reinvented him, I guess, I don't know, and brought him back in the Silver Age. And man, I did not realize how awesome Namor was until I read this. I think Namor is up there with Doom in the most cool villains, you know what I mean? Because he actually really has a reason for fighting the Fantastic Four. And the world, basically. And actually, this goes into one of my favorite books. I was going to talk about that. One of my favorite books in this omnibus that I read so far is Fantastic Four Annual number 1. It's an awesome story of Namor. He finds the lost city of Atlantis, right? Which is all of his people. And that's what he's kind of mad about in the beginning. And then he literally declares war on Earth and, takes over New York. And then Reed, again, with his smarts and his brains, he gets them out using using his brain power, which is really awesome. But yeah, I really like Namor, and he really shows up a lot in these early Fantastic Four issues. There's a ton of books that he's in. And the other thing about Namor is he is really attracted to Sue, right? So, man, it's such a great story. He's always going after Sue, always capturing Sue. And then eventually, I forget the issue number, but I'll put it up on the screen. Namor takes Sue and to his underground thing, and it's the one with Doctor Strange in it. I forget the number, but Reed was actually shopping for a wedding ring for Sue, and he gets so mad, he goes crazy. He goes down into Namor's hiding spot in the ocean, and just they go crazy. And it's a huge fight. It's a really awesome issue. But I just love the rivalry between Namor and Mr. Fantastic, because they're battling for Sue's love, man. It's really entertaining, and it's really awesome to see them fighting it out, and I really hope we see this on the big screen at some point, which I'm sure we will. Okay, so now let's go over some of my favorite issues. Like I said, FF Annual 1, it's when Namor declares war on New York. I really like that. Also, Fantastic Four issue 16. This is an awesome Doom story with Ant-Man, and they shrunk Doctor Doom, and then Doctor Doom you gotta read it. It's just a really awesome story. It's a really cool Doom story. I also like number 17, which is kind of the follow up to that, where they go after him then after Doctor Doom, and he's in this this plane thing, and there's a bunch of traps and everything. It's a really cool issue. And then I also really like issue 19, which is Ramat's hut. And this is like just kind of, if you don't know, this is Kang. So this is like his first true appearance, I guess. You know, we don't know it at the time, but it actually is Kang the Conqueror, who's a time traveler. And this goes into time travel, and they go back to the Egyptian days and like see Ramat's hut. And it's just a really awesome one-off issue. Really liked it. Also, issue 23, another awesome Doom story. You know I'm a big Doom fan. And then one of my favorites was issues 25 and 26. This was actually like a two-part story, and it's the Avengers and Fantastic Four going after the Hulk. And this happens after the events of Avengers number 3, which is when Hulk and Namor like kind of teamed up. And Hulk's like kind of a bad guy in this. You know, he's not like a total bad guy, but he's kind of a bad guy in these issues. And he's going rampant. He's looking for Captain America because Captain America took his spot on the Avengers, so he's really mad at him. He's going rampant through the city. It's just a really awesome, two-part story. It's cool to see all those characters together and fighting. It's really awesome, man. I really dig it. Yeah, guys, I really appreciate you guys watching. I think I pretty much covered everything. And again, this is going to be a 3-parter, so I'm going to read the first omnibus, then the second omnibus, then the third omnibus, and just kind of talk about like my favorite issues and the characters and like what happens and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Also, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe on the way out. We're really close to 500 subscribers. We'll probably have hit it already once you watch this video. But again, really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you. Peace.